It's clear that we need a timeout so that we do not reconfront the terrorists that we had captured and are currently in Guantanamo.
That's New Hampshire Senator Kelly Ayotte a couple of days ago saying we need a timeout on closing the prison facilities at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. But the Obama administration is not pumping the brakes. As we mentioned at the top of the hour, 5 more suspected al-Qaeda fighters are now being transferred out of Guantanamo. Let's talk about this with Gillian Turner, Fox News contributor. She worked at the National Security Council during the Bush and Obama administrations. Gillian, welcome. The Pentagon reportedly says that, these 5 are no longer a threat. How do they know that?
I think the reality is that they don't. Any release of a long-held prisoner at Guantanamo Bay constitutes a tremendous threat to U.S. national security interests, both here and abroad. While these people may not have been tried and convicted, the U.S. intelligence community knows with certainty that these people are some of the most hardened and dangerous terrorists that the Middle East has to offer. These 5 in particular likely have ties to AQAP, which is one of al-Qaeda's most dangerous offshoot organizations, and they share in common with ISIS this radical, militant Sunni demographic, as well as a core agenda that's really hell-bent on destroying as many Westerners as possible.
We know that 3 of them are going to Oman, maybe 1 or 2 are going to Estonia. Supposedly, it is the first time that both of these countries have agreed to take prisoner transfers from Gitmo. What do we know about how they're going to be held, how they're going to be monitored?
What you just raised is one of what I see as 2 main problems with the administration's policy here. The first is that some of these countries like Oman, Afghanistan, and Uruguay are really not tried and true allies of the United States, and regardless of their intentions, may not actually possess the capability to monitor the movements of these individuals and prevent them from returning to the battlefield. The second major problem here is that a lot of the intelligence we've gathered over the past years has really, as I pointed out earlier, pointed to the fact that they're very dangerous. And, the Yemeni demographic of the prisoners has been really the most challenging to sort of offload to other countries.
Especially, after al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula is claiming credit for the Paris attacks. President Obama, since day one of his administration, has been trying to close Guantanamo Bay. He says it hurts our national security, etc. The American people do not seem convinced. A Fox News poll taken more than a month ago, back in December, says, if an ISIS terrorist is captured on the battlefield, where should he be held? 59% of the Americans responding in that poll say, hold him at Guantanamo Bay. So this campaign that the president has been on literally since day one of his administration does not seem to have taken root among the American people.
Yeah, and even before the administration came into power, closing this facility was one of the president's primary campaign promises. And so I think he feels that regardless of public opinion right now, it's really his sort of duty to make sure that sometime in the next 2 years, the prison is closed. He's had very limited success with actually transferring prisoners out. In recent months, we've seen a slow but steady sort of stream. This is because other countries, quite frankly, don't want these people. As I mentioned earlier, Yemen in particular is especially dangerous. It's home to AQAP, also known as al-Qaeda in Yemen, as well as the 2009 now infamous underwear bomber who boarded a Northwest Airlines flight and tried to detonate an explosive device over U.S. soil. I think the hope here of the administration is that eventually we can get the remaining number of 122 down to such a small amount of prisoners that it doesn't actually make sense financially to keep the prison open anymore.
Yeah, well, again, another Fox News poll taken December 7 to 9. What should happen to Gitmo? 56% say keep it open. Now, this poll was taken before the Paris terror attacks, and I have to believe that given what happened in Paris with a number of killers who have ties to terrorism, interests in Yemen, Anwar al-Awlaki and so forth, that those numbers would only go up.
I agree. I think that's absolutely right, especially in light of the fact when you look at The fact that these particular 5 are from Yemen, as are most of the remaining 122 people there, it's, you know, the fact is that most other countries won't take them. And after the Paris attacks, which allegedly perpetrated by the exact same terrorist offshoot organization, Al-Qaeda in Yemen, I think that the rationale for keeping them somewhere safe and, you know, where they're not going to return to the battlefield is really going to become the dominant public sentiment.
Gillian Turner, formerly on the National Security Council staff. Gillian, thank you.
Thanks, John.
Boko Haram on the